Hemochromatosis, high cholesterol, diabetes, these are all things deemed to be bad, but what if they actually were beneficial to us in the past? Survival of the Sickest, a book by Dr. Sharon Malam, explores the topic of disease and its connection to longevity. Ironing It Out discusses a disease called hemochromatosis, which is an inherited disease when you overload on iron because your body's regulating mechanism has broken down.
During the Middle Ages, it was believed that those with hemochromatosis were able to fight off the bubonic plague because of the excess iron in their system.
The excess of iron actually caused the macrophages to be starved and more resistant to the bubonic plague. A spoonful of sugar helps the temperature go down. Yes, sugar actually does this. But first we need to talk about diabetes. It is a disease where you have elevated amounts of glucose in your blood because of an inability to produce insulin, and it plagues millions of Americans today. But because sugar acts as a sort of antifreeze, could it have helped our ancestors during the Ice Age? More on that later. The cholesterol also rises. Vitamin D is one of the most essential vitamins out there, which explains why it is added to so many things. It can also help to explain why people in Europe have lighter skin than if they were from Africa. People with dark skin tend to have higher cholesterol to maximize whatever sunlight gets through their skin. Paler skin lets through more sunlight to produce vitamin D because they have less melanin.
The pituitary gland helps produce melanin, but when you wear sunglasses, the optic nerve is blocked and can't send the right signal to your pituitary gland. So next time you sunbathe, ditch the sunglasses.
Can you do me a fava? People with favaism are not able to get rid of the free radicals from the fava beans, which end up attacking the red blood cells. However, people with favaism are less likely to get malaria because the parasites find they don't like their red blood cells as much. So, like the fava bean, many plants produce toxins to protect themselves against predators because they don't want you going any farther than just taking their fruit to spread the seeds. Of Microbes in Men talks about the virulence of bacteria, guinea worms, and parasites. In this chapter, it is presented that some diseases and bacteria actually affect our mental ability when we are their host. They indirectly affect our behavior to help them reproduce or move to another host. The common cold, however, has a lower virulence because it is spread through coughing or sneezing. More serious diseases like malaria have a higher virulence because they need outside factors to spread, so they cause you to be bedridden. Jump into the gene pool where we learn about how DNA can be altered by more than mutation. Jumping genes are parts of DNA that are able to move locations in the genome. Jumping genes are a large part of our junk DNA, which is the other 97% of our DNA that doesn't code for proteins. Methyl madness, road to the final phenotype. Epigenetics is a field of genetics that focuses on how children can get and express traits from their parents without changing their DNA. The environmental conditions of the mother or even grandmother or father can affect the expression of the child's genes. That's life. Why you and your iPod must die. It is inevitable that we must die one day, and it might actually be to prevent cancer. Every cell has a limit to how many times it can divide so that we don't have uncontrollable cell division, which is cancer. So we are programmed to die one day, just like an iPod is. How does this book relate to the big ideas of biology? Well, the first big idea says the process of evolution drives the diversity and unity of life. As humanity was evolving from light skin with lots of hair, their skin was now more exposed to the sun, and there became an evolutionary preference for dark skin. But when humans moved more towards the north, they had less sun, so they needed paler skin with less melanin to absorb the vitamin D, which created the diversity of skin color we have today. Why is the ALDH2 variation so common among Asians and virtually non-existent among Europeans? Well, as I said before, as humans were migrating to different parts of the world, they experienced different weather and had access to different resources. This caused Europeans to be forced to adapt to drinking unfiltered liquids, while Asians boiled them, so they never developed the same immunity. Biological systems utilize free energy and molecular building blocks to grow, to reproduce, and to maintain dynamic homeostasis. Now, going back to the topic of diabetes and sugar, it seems that diabetes actually was beneficial to our ancestors during an ice age. They responded to the cold by having higher amounts of glucose in their blood to maintain homeostasis. Frogs also have a similar type of response. Their high concentration of glucose made it so that ice crystals were harder to puncture them and also made them not as cold. The fourth big idea that says biological systems interact, and these systems and their interactions possess complex properties. Another way our ancestors stayed warm was a thing called hunter's response. This was when their nervous system felt the extreme environmental conditions and responded with their circulatory system to get more blood flow to their extremities to fight frostbite. Also, iron is something that involves many systems in your body. We absorb iron through the food we eat with the help of our digestive system, but also the iron works with your respiratory system to distribute oxygen. Life is a complicated gift, and we are never truly done evolving.